Let me throw this at you, Paul, and see what you think about this. You've heard it many times, and so have I. Hey, I want to take a class and I want to take training because, all my friends are better riders than me because I can't keep up with them. So they're obviously better riders than me.
No. It doesn't work like that.
If you go faster, you must be better, right, Paul?
No. It doesn't work like that. We actually have a person that I've ridden with before that was very fast, and I didn't even try to keep up with him. I rode at my pace, and the difference was riding at my pace, I was able to, make our destinations and make our meetup points, but in between there, I was riding at 60% of my ability. Whereas he was going really, really fast and was riding at 95% of his ability. And so if there's any sort of a mishap, he's got no room for error. And so just because you're going fast doesn't mean you're good. It could just mean you've been lucky for a while.
It's really hard from the outside. You cannot tell how close somebody is to their limit. Because if they haven't crashed, you don't know. But if you start paying close attention, you see people making corrections or sliding wide, you start realizing they must be running far closer to their edge. And you can be a much, much better skilled rider. But as we get older, our senses, our vision decreases. We can't see things as well. We can't react as fast. And, it's that skilled rider who recognizes those abilities and drops down in their speed. But they know that they can't identify the things needed to respond as quickly as they used to. So they may be a much, much better rider, but actually ride at a lower pace. And that's where I think for myself, I don't include speed as a factor of skill, except under two circumstances. One, if you're going so slow that you're having more mishaps and you're working hard, you're falling down, you're getting caught up in the sand, then skill's a factor. And if you're riding so fast that you're having near misses and running wide and breaking, just breaking a sweat because you're almost waiting to crash, then obviously judgment and skill have a factor. But anything in between that, speed doesn't count. It's not the same. It's a completely different, irrelevant factor in judging yourself as far as how good you are.
Yep. And the truth is, if I'm out adventure riding, if I'm on the BDR, I don't necessarily want to go fast because I'm out there for the scenery. I want to be able to see things, and if I'm passing by everything at 65 miles an hour and making a big cloud of dust for everyone behind me, I'm not actually enjoying the adventure.
You got to ride your own ride, and we hear that all the time. Ride your own ride, but people don't. They want to keep up with their pals, or they feel like they're being pressured. They have to show off. And it's really difficult to do that, but that's so important to be able to actually ride your own ride within your skill set, your joy set. And I think the older you get, the easier it is to do that because you're not trying to impress people. You are willing to slow down and just enjoy the scenery, stop and take a break when you're ready to take a break, and just not push those limits to the point that you're going to end up in some serious trouble out there.
Well, and some of it is the older I get, the less I give a shit what everybody else thinks.
Well,
I'm out there for me, not for them. I ain't riding this bike because someone else likes it. I'm riding it because it's the one I want. I ain't riding this trail because someone else wants me to. I'm riding it because that's where I want to go. And if I'm not going fast enough for them, well, I'll see them on the other side. Or I'll be sponging them up out of the ditch somewhere.
And that's what riding your own ride really is being able to stand up and just enjoy what you're enjoying and not feel the pressure of somebody behind you, not feel the pull because somebody's in front of you.
I got one for you, Bret. One of the biggest comments and questions that I get is about boot selection. And there's a lot of different companies coming out with adventure boots, and people want to know what I wear. My first question back to them is, where are you planning on riding? Because I wear different boots if I'm just doing a street ride or if I'm commuting versus going out on a BDR or going out on some kind of a long off-road trip.
Well, the way I look at boots, Paul, is it's the amount of risk you're willing to assume.
Yep.
And when you go off-road, second to your head, your feet are the most likely to have a severe injury. So if you have a heavy motocross boot that's made for off-road and for that kind of protection, it's going to be the best. But on the other hand, if I want the maximum protection while riding on the road, I'm going to wear those same motocross boots on the street. So it really comes down to that personal choice. I can wear flip-flops and tennis shoes off-road. I just got to know that the chances of me hurting that foot or injuring myself are really, really high comparatively.
Yep.
And
yeah, there is no right or wrong. It's how much risk are you willing to accept.
These all these boots that come out that are adventure-focused boots, for the most part, the majority of them are a very stiff, very supportive touring boot for the road. And they make them a little more comfortable standing on the pegs, but they really don't have the super heavy support for serious off-road. It is just a matter of choice, and that's another reason I'm not taking my bike off-road and going to try to ride this 1200 like it's a dirt bike. I'm not even dressed like I'm riding a dirt bike.
Well, and they say wisdom is gained through mistakes you've survived. And I know that if I'm going to be off-road, especially if I'm off-road by myself, because I do a lot of solo trips, when I had my GS with the hard panniers fall over on top of me and trap my leg underneath, I am pretty sure that had I not been wearing, full-on motocross boots, that I probably would have sustained some sort of injury.
If you're new to adventure riding and you're still learning and polishing your skills, the chances of you falling over or having that, getting pinned is so much greater. Get the most protective, aggressive off-road boot you can manage. And the thing I'll hear is, well, but I can't feel my controls, Bret. I just can't feel them. Well, there's techniques that allow you to shift better, to feel better, and adjustments you can do to the bike. You can adjust your shifters so you can work with it with those off-road boots. But protection needs to be number one. And then as you get better skilled, you can more accurately assess your risk level. Then you can decide whether to downgrade your protection or not. So here's a misconception that I think is fun to chat about. We get people coming out, because Tour USA is one of my companies, and I get guys coming out wanting to rent the motorcycles, and they want me to build a route, and they're like, man, I want 80% dirt, 90% dirt. Adventure riding is never going to be 80, 90% dirt. Even if I want to take the Washington BDR, which is the closest one to where I am, and I ride that, I'm less than a 50-50 dirt, because I've got to get to the beginning, I got to get home from the end, and even with the small sections of pavement in between, I'm well under 50%.
I can understand it because they want the adventure, and and that's fine. But again, part of the problem is they just don't necessarily know what they're getting into. That the amount of effort riding off-road versus riding on pavement, that taking trails and doing that more frequent stops, and you're riding at much slower speeds.
I guess it's the sense of needing to gain self-awareness, to really gain perspective, to know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's one of the, if you think about when we've talked about training, what do people lack? And most always it ends up talking about things like, navigation or medical first aid or knowing how to fix their bike. It's really about all those secondary things that aren't shown in the movies or written about in the books.
Knowing where you're at and being honest with yourself is probably one of the most important things when you're getting ready to undertake something new like this, is knowing your skill level, knowing where you're at, and realizing that there's always more to learn.
Just some very basic training, very basic preparation and knowledge can keep you safe, or at least relatively safe, when you're out enjoying the sport.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think a lot of it has to do with just being honest with yourself about your abilities and being self-aware, and knowing that you're getting into something new and that you've got a lot to learn, and not getting caught up in the bravado of it.